Welcome to my story 11. Um, so, where we left you with a question last time was, who was the Messiah? And in our last episode, we talked about biblical reference, which I'll get back to, or I'll get forward to, which goes back to, he will rebuke many people and judge among the nations. Blah, 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 blah. Those of you who know it, know it. Those of you know how it ends, know how it ends. How it begins is probably the question of this story. Now, most people believe that this begins with the Messiah. But then, well, there's a 2 billion plus people, call it 2/3 of the earth, that believe that Messiah was Jesus. There's others who may or may not question it, and well, actually, there's a billion Muslims that don't question it. So if you do the math, about half of the people on earth accept Jesus as the Messiah. Okay, so what does the Messiah have to do with the price of rice in China? And as you know, if you listen to my previous episodes, much of this has been about economics, but it's the new economics of people over money, and it's the new economics of a global world enterprise with a global world currency. And I've stated before, a virtual currency. I call it rainbow stars. You can call it anything you want. Stars are infinite. A rainbow is a representation of all people. I don't know whatever representation. It could be the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It could be the potentiality of us. The point is, well, so let's look at this notion of a Messiah. If Messiah came today, how would you know that Messiah? And well, that would be really weird. But I don't know how you would bring your credentials and says, well, I'm the old guy or I'm a new guy. Either way, it would be really, really hard. Um, but okay, so let's say, well, okay, so what does that mean? Well, see, this is what it gets into. It's that, okay, let's say that my notion way back in 2005 and that I was that so-called Messiah, which I don't really claim it. I reclaim it. I claim to be the prophet of prophets, the prophet of prophets. Um, and maybe that's a claim just as a character in a fantasy reality movie. The point is this, is that there may be no Messiah as you know him. Just as I perceived back then that the Antichrist is you, all of us, that the Messiah is both. Well, here's the deal. This is an interesting, when you parse out words, thing. Mess, I, selfishness, revelation. Mess, like the world around us. I, selfishness, revelation. Okay, Messiah. Okay, now let's say I was this Messiah or some like anointed dear leader of the future. Well, first thing, I'm not crazy, and I'm way too crazy. In fact, I would be, well, why would I want to ever rule? That's the other question. Why would any sane man want to rule? And then that question, then you ask the people, well, if no sane man would want to rule, then who's ruling? Well, that becomes another interesting question. Ask the politicians. Well, see, they have to have a little bit of a touch of fire to rule, but hopefully we find some that are benevolent and see the longer part in a bigger history of us. And well, in the future, politicians just become integrated into our enterprise. But anyway, so, in fact, why not just buy them off directly? I can pay all your presidents more than they get. I can make all your candidates for president. In fact, see, this is the paradigm of my new political structure. If I had a political structure, it would be put Obama and Romney in the White House. Put them both, or put more in. Put a round table of people with the same goal and the same, well, holistic enterprise view of the structure of money and of what our true objectives and what our true profits are. And so, anyway, I think when you really get around to it, you can take the right and the left, and that really the only way is to put around the same round table, sort of like the yin and the yang, and then allow the people to exercise the power and the value of their single vault, but also the power and the value of their sort of monetary vault. Because as we move forward in a transition, I envision, well, you have to imagine a world of pricelessness. That's right, a world of pricelessness. And so let me also explain to any of you would be imaginary reality film creators out there. I have designated any and all of the content that I might have created back to this enterprise of us, which I haven't necessarily formally set up. It's just too much of a pain, and it's too outside of the realm. You know, I mean, if I'm going to create a virtual enterprise outside of the realm of your nations, what nation do you set it up in? It's actually in the realm of mind. But anyway, the point is this. All those profits, well, from your enterprise, you get a cut of those profits as long as you agree, and you could use my stuff to ad infinitum if it's of any value in creating anything. But here's the thing, I would just want you to cut in, well, yourself and maximize yourself. And when you get 1 billion, we'll stuff you out there. We'll put you on a retirement track. Actually, by the time you're at 1 billion, you're probably happy. And then you throw all the excess money back into the pot. Well, okay, what if you could make 100 millionaires like Arnold Schwarzenegger and make them billionaires? How do you do that? How do you make these people so much value? It's that you count. And how do you really count the value of money? Okay, now, by the way, it's just so that you know, it's the new paradigm. The Messiah is you, whoever you are, especially those who have the power to actually exercise their power of money, or the power of power, or whatever power you may have at every level, of every part of our world. See, this is the new paradigm of what's the Messiah. It's not ever going to be a single one person. Maybe that becomes a trigger, but then it triggers others. It becomes sort of like a band of angels, a growing band, because you're the Messiah. That's the only salvation. You see, if you get back to it, rebuke many people. There's a lot of people to rebuke, but once you're done rebuking them, you're saying, okay, you're already rebuked. You know what you did right. You know what you did wrong. You're actually rebuking yourselves. Now let's just get on the same sides, get on the same train, and start working and building a future together and writing the best future and the best future history we could ever imagine together. And so that's sort of the story. And so then it says, okay, so it changes your concept of what a Messiah is. It also changes your concept of judgment. Because, well, actually, what I'm trying to describe, and I described it at the beginning, is rather than wait for divine intervention, I believe that God designed us to divinely intervene ourselves. That yes, that we would decide to learn how to, well, our intelligence design, how to put our heads together, and how to use actually the technologies we have today, and the power we have today, and the communications, and well, the understanding that we have today of the interconnected nature of our world, and that the only way to achieve prosperity is to achieve prosperity that is extensive from the bottom to the top, and that you see only with a strong prosperity from the bottom, and it's just a lot of middle class issues. Well, you know what? You know, you know, Obama and Romney are pressing the middle class, and I have nothing against the middle class of America. I'd prefer just to retire out the middle class and then bring it to people more jobs. In fact, if we start looking at the future of the earth, why would we have to have 40-hour work tweaks. Well, of course, because we have these constraints of the monetary system that we know now. And I don't want to get out of those constraints too rapidly. We'll leave it up to our economists to understand. But the point is this, that our economy is built on consumption, and our consumption is built by people. You're basically, if you're a single billionaire, you're sitting on a dead pool of capital. You and your family can only consume so much, and you may have good intents for the other capital, but it's not being consumed. And, well, it's not all about consumption, it's about building. But you can't build a future on, well, a pile of mortgages and a stock market that's built on expectations. And this is important. You see, all your expectations of value. Today is 1019. Yesterday, I think, might have been a good day in the market. This is a terrible time in the world when you're in the stock markets, because anybody might be nervous on a Friday, 1019. Why would they be nervous on a Friday, October 19? Well, October's just a nerve-wracking time for Wall Street folks. And, well, so Google just disappointed. That's not good news. I don't think Google's ever disappointed. But anyway, that's not what actually, I was going to say that's not the point, but that is the point. Because those who you perceive as great enterprises depreciate their value when your projections for the future disappear, and the projections for the future are based on an illusion of profits, and the United States has an illusion of protected havens of intellectual property that actually are at risk from many sectors, many places, not just China or else in the world. It's just at risk for obsolescence of time, if nothing else. And so, well, if you look at how do we increase the value of the world, well, I've talked a lot about it. But anyway, the point I just wanted to leave with this video on is that the salvation that I am talking about, the judgment day, is one that we all create together. And I don't plan to be judged. In fact, judge me if this is the wrong plan. Recreate a new one. If I am a crazy guy, no, turn off my channel. If I'm a crazy guy you want to listen to, turn on my channel. It doesn't really matter. I really don't care. Actually, if anybody ever had a different idea, they could come back and tell me that there is no way we could create a better future on Earth if we put our heads together. That there's no way we could bridge and cross this chasm to justice and peace on Earth in our lifetimes. And I'm talking about my lifetimes, which might be shorter than your lifetimes, or maybe the lifetimes of some of our older people. And so I'm in the midlife of, well, I'm not in a crisis, but I'm in a midlife. It depends on where midlife is, but midlife's a moving number. And so that gets interesting because we can't afford for people to live longer, and yet we want them to live longer, and yet our biggest problem in America is our Medicare system with what, I don't know. You might start having to talk about euthanasia, the euthanasia take-over, and what happens to the American healthcare system when the euthanasia are smarter than everybody, and they have other doctors. We can't even import Chinese doctors because you wouldn't want Chinese doctors. They'd undercut the monopoly of American doctors. Of course, we couldn't allow Cuban doctors in because the Cubans, and they undercut the market. Anyway, you get the picture. Everybody has their own little monopolies, holding on to the little monopolies, but everybody's screwing the bigger monopoly of us. And until we get our heads wrapped around the bigger monopoly of us, we will never achieve the power of the future we have together. That's the message, not of me as an individual Messiah, but the message of our original Messiah. And there are many people that can better interpret the message, but I don't think anybody can point the path to achieving the story, can point a path to financing a leverage buyout merge of the planet and a leverage buyout of the interests of our nations. I conceived of that. Is it possible it could be executed? That's the question. And whether you should choose to answer it, whether you should choose to even tune in this channel, it's you choose. That was a question I asked a little. You choose. Because that's the ultimate Well, that's the ultimate thing. Other than learning, you choose whether to learn. And that was the lesson. I think, well, that was a biblical lesson. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.